Hey, deserving listeners, 90 Day Fiancé. Let's watch.
And walk away. I'm telling you, a good exit, it makes you feel so much better. I'm telling you.
Absolutely. Don't stoop to his level. Yeah, stoop really low.
But I'm telling you, a glass of red wine on that white shirt would be everything. I would pay you to do it.
Interesting. Kim is recommending, hopefully she's joking, but she's shown that she is capable of this and throwing a glass of substance in someone's face, which is not okay. It's abusive behavior, not okay. There's so many other ways one can express their displeasure or want to break up with someone. It's just not okay. Is it a high crime to stain a person's shirt with red wine? I don't know. But if someone did that to me, I just it's like, what? One, it's abusive. You could consider it to be assaultive on some level. I don't know if it's a crime, but it's in that direction. But it's also extremely immature to do that, to put hands on. Just use your words. Just say, hey, I don't like the way you treat me, and I'm angry at you, and I don't want to be with you. So fuck off. There's a lot of other ways to express yourself. You don't have to do what Kim does.
I'm gonna go chug a glass because I'm too uptight right now, so I'll be right back.
So you're gonna go and yell at Ed right now?
Don't do it unless I'm there.
Let us know,
please,
because
God.
we need to follow you.
So she just said, I need to go chug a glass because I need to get calm and my courage up or something. And if I were there, I would recommend that she not do that. One, because to be intoxicated is to not have your brain working quite right, and thus you might make some mistakes. Might this help? It's possible, but I wouldn't recommend it. Also, the pattern might be there for her, and maybe Ed as well, that alcohol is used as a way of trying to deal with emotions. Is it automatically an issue? Not necessarily, but it's a red flag for someone having an ongoing self-destructive problem with substances is when they utilize it that way. You'll hear some people that will be really dogmatic about it. Like if you've ever used alcohol to cope with a negative feeling, you are alcoholic and you need to never drink again. The issue is, what's the outcome? So, for example, you take someone, while I'm on this topic, and I'm not recommending people do this, of course, but it just needs to be considered in terms of the gradation, the degree of a quote-unquote problem. You have someone who lives life and experiences stresses and anxieties and whatnot, and 99 times out of 100, they don't use substances as a way of trying to deal with those emotional experiences. And, they go through it. They feel the feelings. They're sober when they're going through it. They try to cope with it. They develop routines that help them get through those things, like reaching out to other people or taking a vacation from work or getting their mind off of it by just vegging in front of the TV or something. And then 1 out of 100 times, they're just like, oh, I've had a stressful day, I need a drink. And they have a drink and they numb out and it improves their coping or something. And you could argue that it just puts it off until the next day. But, maybe for some people it actually gives them time to calm down so that the next day they're able to deal with it. So 1 out of 100 times, that's what they do. What's the overall outcome? Well, what we're usually concerned about when someone uses alcohol or a substance to deal with their emotions is that it becomes the only way they can deal with emotions. And if it was effective, then fine. If you have one way to deal with your emotions and it's effective, then great. But it's not really that effective because it doesn't solve anything. It just numbs you out and postpones things. Our emotions are important. They are good indications of something's wrong and we need to deal with it, right? And so if there's a way to deal with it that is more constructive, like drawing boundaries or communication or therapy or something, then of course those things should be utilized because you can actually do something about the thing that caused you the anxiety or the pain or whatever. So if your utilization of substances interferes with the development of those routines, then that is harmful to you because you will never develop an effective way of dealing with things and you will need substances. Also, the chance of you having frequent emotional situations is increased because you have no way of fixing your life so that you don't have those things because you always numb out. So you have an increase in the triggers for your emotions, which means an increase for the need for substances. And of course, substance use chronically, or really any substance use, is potentially harmful, particularly the more chronic, the more frequent. So you're harming your body. Also, you start to numb out to people around you that might love you or want contact with you, your kids, your family, and that harms your relationship, gives you more reason to suffer, more shame, more reasons to use a substance, and the spiral continues. That is a real thing that happens, and that's what we're talking about when we're recommending that people not use substances to cope with their emotions. But if, for example, Liz in this moment or in her life, that the domains of her life are relatively going well. Her parenting is going well. Her ability to go to therapy, her ability to learn new skills of emotional coping, her ability to cope with things without using substances. If all those things are going well, and yet in this moment she wants another glass to be able to cope, then, on the scale of things, it's not to the degree that I would say is a major problem. Could it be a minor problem? Could it even just be a blip on the radar in terms of her behavior? Could also be that. So, that's what I'll say about it.
How mean.
He's on my time right now. If he really wants to talk to me, he can wait. He can make the effort to wait.
Yeah, she's busy. She's just like, oh, I'm busy right now. I'm like, okay, whatever.
How rude is that?
You're better than me. Do you know what I would have done? I would have got up and been like, you know what, mother, and threw the drink at him. And then
Yeah, Kim needs a different repertoire. She's real fixated on the drink in your spouse's face. It's interesting. What does that come from? Is it, I guess it feels like it's not really harmful, right? Because it's just, let's look at the themes. Usually that's helpful for us to analyze people's behavior. It's like, what's the outcome? What do we think Kim thinks the outcome will be? Because Kim would use it with Usman. She did it at least twice. And I think that it's possible that Kim thinks the outcome is I'm expressing my feelings. That's 1. 2, I'm humiliating them. 3, I am being extreme. So there's that. They will know that I'm being extreme, like I mean business. 4, I don't care about them. It's an act of disrespect. It's like spitting in someone's face. It's like, I care about you so little that I'll even spit on you, that kind of thing. I don't know if that's what Kim is going for, but could be. At the very least, I'm expressing my emotions and you're humiliated. And it's definitive because I do it and I walk away and there's no comeback from the other person. So when we look at that and we can't know if those are the themes of the outcomes that she's looking for, then it does reflect what's going on inside of the individual. That they want the other person to feel what they feel. We do this all the time, unfortunately. Whenever we feel hurt by someone, we want that person who hurt us to feel hurt as well, maybe even more so because we believe they started it. When people insult someone on the bus, it's just like, well, you're a piece of crap. No, you're a piece of crap. So we do this all the time, and it's weird. It's not logical. It doesn't really make any sense because what do you gain from that? It's so compulsive too, right? For me, for example, I understand how ridiculous that is. A lot of people understand how ridiculous that is. I'm not unique in that way, but I just want to point that out. And I've always known ever since I was a teenager, because toxic masculinity, there will always be this sort of fighting, instigation and whatnot. And so there's always been there have been many moments in my life, particularly early in my life, where that sort of reciprocation, at least with other guys, would come up. And so I saw, it's like, oh, that doesn't make any, it's not logical. Someone calls me out and says, you're not a real man because you're scared or something. What do I care what they think of me? I don't even, and what if I am scared? Like there was one time when I was driving with my friends. I was 16 and we were talking a lot. There were like 4 of us in the car and I'm driving, and I saw someone that I thought I knew. And so we all were looking, we're in a parking lot and I was looking out the window. We're like, hey, and then I ran into a car that was in front of me. It was totally my fault. And it was a nice car, 80s. The guy jumps out of his car, and I don't think I've ever talked about this on the podcast. So I run into him, but just as I was about to run into him, my friend sitting in the passenger seat was like, stop. And so I stopped, but I still kind of tapped the car in front of me. And there was no damage. We just bumped because my friend said something, I managed to stop. The guy gets out of his car and I see him. He takes off his glasses and he throws them on the ground, his like nice D-bag sunglasses. He stomps on them with his own feet, with his foot. I was like, huh? It's summertime. Our windows are down. He's coming up to the side of the car. I have this white Civic hatchback, flat back. So it's this tiny little car. And he's coming over and I'm like, oh. So I start, back then if you had power windows, power locks, that was like fancy. It was all crank. So I'm cranking, I'm starting to crank the window. And so I crank because I'm like, oh, here we go. This guy wants to fight. Why? Like I made a mistake. Our insurance will pay, or I'll pay. I'm sorry that I hit your car. It's obviously my fault. You're going to get into a physical fight with me over this? Like, what's wrong with you? So I start rolling up the window and my finger is on the lock. I'm like about to lock the car because I didn't think that he would just fling the door open. I thought there would be an exchange and I would buy us a little bit of time by rolling up the window and locking and then eventually he'd calm down and I'd be able to unlock the door and get out and we could exchange numbers, whatever. But I'm about to unlock and I'm not really paying that close attention. And he opens the door. And he grabs the door and bends it into the fender of the car. So, the door stops at a certain point and he bent it like way beyond. And I'm just like, what is happening? Barely tapped you. And okay, fine, I'll pay for it. And then he just launches at me and it happened very quickly. And so and mind you, I'm 16, 17. I'm at the top of my physical conditioning. I played lots of sports and worked out, was in the gym every day. And so I wasn't afraid physically, but he's attacking me. I'm just like, what is happening? And then my friends are grabbing me and trying to get me away from the, because he's just, I can't remember, he's punching me, he's trying to strangle me, and I'm like, because it happens so quickly. And when you're sitting down, you have your seatbelt on, that's a very difficult position to defend yourself. You have no leverage, you have no leg control, your core can't be involved. You're just all arms. And anyway, so my friends are pulling me. So I'm being yanked and strangled and hit repeatedly. And I'm just like, what is happening? And then at some point, the guy just stops. I can't remember why, but because no one stopped him. And I certainly was just, I don't know. And then eventually I get out of the car. I'm like, what's wrong with you? And I go look at the car, no damage to either of our cars. I'm looking at him, I was like, oh, no, what happened? This is the best part. What a tangent. So this friend of ours, maybe even the girl, the teenage girl that we were waving to, I'm not entirely sure about this, but we had a friend, he was sort of a friend of a friend, who in his church had an affair with the minister's wife. I don't know if any of this is real, and it's 30 plus years old news, and I don't know if any of that's true, but I remember that, and I think it was him that we saw, and he was with By that point, a divorce had happened with the minister and his wife, and now the wife was with this kid. We were minors, so it was one of those Mary Kay Letourneau things. And I think it was him that we were waving at, like, hey. And she was the one. So she and it was a young minister. So in my memory, they seemed ancient to us, but I think they were like mid-20s anyway. So I think it was her, but I could be wrong about that. Anyway, a woman that I didn't know that well or didn't know at all came as the guy is throttling me. She jumps out of the car. And for those of you who know the area, I'm in Factoria in the Safeway parking lot, or I can't remember, is it Safeway or QFC? It's right across the street from the cinema. Anyway, we would go there a lot in high school. It was kind of a cruising place. This is midday, by the way. She comes flying up, and she's this tiny little thing, and she just starts yelling at him, going like, "What's wrong with you? What's wrong with you?" And then he stops, and I get my bearings. I look out, and he's just looking down at his feet as she's chastising him. And it was then, I think it was kind of actually a learning moment of psychology for me, because I didn't see a lot of violent people in my life, but the stereotype is that they're absolute jerk faces through and through. Well, this guy immediately seemed to regret what he had done, and felt he looked like instantly like his tiny little boy being yelled at by this stranger, but it seemed like it was his mom yelling at him, right? He's just like, just quietly just sitting there, and the look on his face was so distinctive. I just thought, that must be what's underneath all this anger and aggression. Incidentally, what happened from my memory was we did exchange numbers. We didn't call the police, or maybe we did. No, I think we did call the police, and I think he was charged because, it's physical assault. But don't quote me on that. But at the very least, he paid for everything because it was my dad's car, it was my parents' car, and it was pretty expensive because he had to replace the door, he had to replace the fender, it's a couple thousand maybe, and he had to pay for it, and he did. So he never resisted that. And yeah, I'm pretty sure he was charged, and they didn't ask me to come to the hearing, and I think he just pled guilty or something, and I don't think he went to prison. But why am I telling that story? Kim has a limited repertoire, and she is looking for an effect, I think, as she does the thing with the glass. She wants to humiliate, and she wants it to be extreme. She probably had similar experiences as a victim when she was growing up, but it was exaggerated, like much more elaborate or much more severe ways of humiliating and being extreme in your emotional expression to a child. Like, this is just for instance, that it's possible that Kim went through an experience as a child where her parents, when they were displeased with Kim, that they would express their displeasure, be like, "You're ruining my life," and would maybe push her down. Probably not a glass of water to the face, but something that's purposefully trying to humiliate Kim, right? And then Kim internalizes that, and she knows not to do that because she knows how it feels to be the victim of that, but she does something adjacent to that, which is something like this. This is total speculation, by the way, but it just is interesting that she has this pretty limited repertoire. And you can use this in your own life, that when you see problematic behavior, sometimes this is a family member, it is unreasonable, it's a pattern of theirs. Look for the themes of the outcomes that you think they're actually seeking, and then you can look, and then you could imagine that what's really happening it doesn't justify it, and you could still avoid that person, but it does give insight potentially into what's really happening for that individual inside. They feel humiliated. They feel like they're not being heard, and so they feel like they have to be extreme in their expression of their emotion, and they want to humiliate other people because they feel humiliated.
I'm gonna go back to work, bust my ass off, surround myself by positive people.
I'm here.
You're there. You are down the street from me.
Yes, girl.
That's so cool.
It's time to let go.
It sure is.
So,
And if you're at peace with it, cheers to you.
and you know what, Kim? If I'm feeling down, and if
Call me.
I feel like I miss
Stop you.
him,
Do you want me to stop
I will
you?
call you.
Okay, well, she is seemingly committing to she's actually done with Ed, but I don't think that'll happen. I don't really even hear it in her voice. She could be. What do I know? but we've seen her go through worse things and go back to Ed. So maybe the therapy is helping. I don't know. And I don't even know if it's the right thing to do to leave him. I think a lot of viewers would say that it is the right thing. So I'm not saying that I know anything about that, but I think it's not likely that this is actually the end. All right, well, that does it for that episode. Everyone out there, please take care of yourself because you deserve it. You really, really do.